In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and Jessica.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2025 and a new year of the Deal Board.
A new year. I think we're going into our 7th year.
I think we are, and we're certainly going to hit 200 episodes maybe this year. We're getting close.
Yeah,
we're getting close.
So every year, like we've done in the past 5-6 years, we like to kick off our Deal Board year with a goal planning episode.
Yeah, with the JT Tatem, now president, which he'll tell you that story at the end, president of Transworld Business Advisors, our franchise company, and we're happy to have him. And he, of course, is still running his business brokerage operations in North Carolina, Western North Carolina, South Carolina, but he is heading Transworld, and we love having him because he is so motivational, inspirational, and he does this goal setting talk that we've had on every single year. And this one's a good one, right?
This is a good one. So JT will talk about, we're doing the 8 W's of goal getting. If you haven't heard previous episodes, if you go back for the last 5 years, our first January episode, you can catch up on those episodes. But we're going to jump into the interview where JT gives you a full overview of the goal getting process. And we're going to cover our 8th and final W this year.
Work.
Yes.
Work.
Yes. It's the biggest one.
Yeah, it's a great one. So let's get right to it because JT has a lot to say.
Yes.
Transworld Business Advisors is the world's largest business brokerage and mergers and acquisitions firm with over 1,000 brokers and nearly 250 offices worldwide. Transworld's team handles thousands of business sales every year. To be connected with a qualified business broker or learn more about the buying and selling process, visit tworld.com/thedealboard or call 888-719-9098.
This is now our 4th or 5th year. We've welcomed the new year with JT and doing goal setting for our listeners. It's one of our, most recommended podcasts. We get great feedback on it every year. And we've been doing the 8 W's of goal setting for the last, I think it's been 5 years,
yes,
right?
I think that's true.
Yeah, it's tradition at this point.
It's tradition, that's right. It just becomes, it's part of the kickoff of the new year. So
yeah,
happy
I like
2025.
it. It just feels warm and fuzzy and getting your goals set. I mean, I think it's so critical.
Right, it is. Because you have to have a game plan going into the year, right? You don't march onto the field without a game plan when you're going to the big game. So you shouldn't march into the year without knowing what you're looking to do or what you're going to accomplish. So, yeah.
So with that being said, JT, why don't you just quickly review the eight W's. And if you guys have not listened to the other podcasts, if you go back to our first episode in January for the last 5 years, you'll get caught up. But give us the high level overview of the 8 W's.
Okay. So it's the 8 W's of goal getting. Because anybody can be a goal getter or goal setter. Sorry, we want you to be a goal getter, right? So goal getter W number 1 is write. So write down those things that you're intending to accomplish as your goals. Because writing it down means that you're that's the first step to having a plan. What they say, dreams or goals that were never written down. So you got to write it down. That's number 1. Number 2 is going to be the why. So in one sentence, be able to explain why you want to achieve that specific goal that you had written down. And then number 3 is going to be the where. And where are the obstacles going to be? The things that are going to get in your way that are going to prevent you from actually achieving the goal. So you've got right, you've got why, you've got where. Number 4 is what. And that is, what do I have to learn that I don't already know in order to be able to achieve that goal? Do I have to take a class? Do I have to be mentored by somebody? Do I have to learn a new skill? That's what would consist of. And then number 5 is going to be who. So now that I know what I got to learn, who can help me get there? And most of us can't accomplish all of these things on our own. It's kind of a band of brothers approach. So who can help you learn those things that you need to learn, or be an accountability partner for you, or somebody who will be an asset to helping you get to where you want to get to. And then number 6 is the way, and that is writing out the actual plan. Like, make a list of all the steps that you would have to take. Once you have all the steps, then put them in a priority order, Number 1 has to happen before number 2, before number 3, and so on. And then number 7, W, is when. And you have to assign dates to each of those steps. But you begin by first determining the date of when the entire goal is going to be accomplished, and then work backwards from there. And drop the dates in according to the steps in number 6. And then when your calendar says do this on Tuesday the 25th, you just do that thing. And the sum of a lot of little things isn't little. So the more of those things you do consecutively, the better your chances are that you're going to be a goal getter. But all of that is for naught if you don't do W number 8. It's a 4-letter word that a lot of people don't like, and that word is work. You got to do the work. And so if you've already done all the hard work of actually creating the goal, writing it down with the why and who and what and where, etc., then you might as well finish by actually doing what comes up in the calendar when you put those things in the calendar, those actions from step number 6, which is the way. And the work is the hardest part, probably, because you've done the hard work of setting the goal, but now you have to do the daily. When it shows up, I have to commit whatever it is today. I'm gonna take that step. I'm gonna do that work. And sometimes that work is with some of those other people, like you outlined in step number 5. Sometimes it's a step that you have to take by yourself. And sometimes it's a step or a piece of work that needs to be done, but it could be being delegated to someone else as well. So don't ever think that you have to do all the work yourself, Andy. If you're really good as an entrepreneur, you've probably surrounded yourself with other people and resources who can help you along the way.
Got to have partners.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So pull those people in, delegate it. The general rule of thumb I like to use is if someone can do it as good as me, better than me, or good enough, I'm going to delegate it to them.
I like
Great
that.
idea.
As good as me, better than me, or good enough, give it away. That way, that's right. That way it leaves you only doing the things that only you can do. So, for example, I have an executive assistant. You guys have one as well, right? In your line of work, and that EA, as great as they may be a $60,000 a year employee. Well, that's X number of dollars an hour. So why would I do X number of dollar an hour things when I should be doing Y dollar an hour things? So as much as possible, and with all of the different resources that are available today, like virtual assistants, offshoring, Fiverr, so on and so forth, there's really not much work-wise that can't be done by probably someone else. You just have to control that schedule.
JT, I have a question. So when you're doing the work, a lot of times other work will creep in or it'll turn into something else. How often do you have to change kind of the work plan sometimes?
Yeah, probably every day.
Right.
Right. Because you have to be somewhat fluid. But that's why if you go back to step number 6, which is the way, and then step number 7, which is the when, you may remember this from last year, we said, so let's say you put this list together of all the different way items that you have to take, and then you have to estimate the amount of time each one of those is going to take. And then we said, and add about 20%. So if you think something's going to take you an hour, make it worth an hour and 20%, whatever that would be. Okay. Right. In that case, it would be an hour and a half, right? Mm-hmm. So that way you've kind of got it figured out that, look, I'm making room for adjustments that I have to make. Something else comes in, I get distracted, there's an interruption. Give yourself a little bit of extra time. Just pad it some, because that's going to happen every single day. And I think the work part, which goes back to the when, is what is your organizational system? Like, what do you use to schedule the work? Many people are on digital calendars today. You're using Outlook or Google Cal or Gcal or whatever it is. That's all fine, but you got to make sure that you're then working in blocks of time. We've talked about that before too. Dedicating a certain amount of time, putting it aside, which goes back to number 7, how long is it going to take me? And then block that time out and commit to doing just that thing during that time. And it's really hard in the day and age that we work in today, where you're getting a text message, you're getting another email, somebody's knocking on the door, you've got a meeting you got to go out to. But when you block that time, you're basically committing, you're making an appointment with yourself. You very rarely will be late or change an appointment you have with someone else, but we'll be really quick to change an appointment we have with ourselves. And we're shortchanging ourselves when we do it. Right. So yes, those other people and things are important, but if I'm going to accomplish the goals, I've got to be able to have time set aside for me to actually do the work.
And JT, I mean, that point about I will not cancel on someone else, but I'll cancel on myself, right?
That true?
As entrepreneurs, we're all busy,
Yes.
right? We all have things that are flooding our inbox and our voicemails every day. How do you keep the work from the goals that you put together top priority and continue to stay motivated and not let yourself fall, because you fall behind the work a little bit and then it starts to become...
It's a domino effect.
Yeah.
Like one thing happens to the other, right? So years ago, I read a book, and I just have my team reading that book now. It's Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Mm-hmm. And what Brian talks about in that book, the gist of it is that we all have really big and important things to do, but most of the time what can happen to us is the really big important thing gets pushed off and pushed off and pushed off all during the day, and we do these other low value tasks instead of the big thing. Look at the big thing like it's the big ugly frog. It's wet, it's slimy, it's got big warts on it. It isn't going to get any better looking as the day goes on. So tackle that thing first thing in the morning, and everything else after that seems to go better. So I guess the application of that, Jess, is: are you scheduling the things that you know you need to get done earlier in your day or at your most productive part of the day? You might be an afternoon person. I'm a morning person. Andy's an evening person, whatever. Wherever you are going to be most productive, that's where you want to block that time that you're dedicating to the things that you need to get done. I'm not a big email fan for that reason, because email, when you walk in the morning, is really basically everybody else's to-do list that they've now given to me. And now that becomes my to-do list. No, I can't do that. I have to sacrifice those other things temporarily to get the thing that I need to get done. Stay committed to that piece.
That's great. And a lot of what I see out there in the world is paralysis by analysis. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They just spend a lot of time planning to do something.
Right.
How much of the work, if something goes wrong, or how much of it is just do the work, even if you're not quite sure how to do it?
Yeah. So we have a mantra in our office that says, do fast, redo faster. So, as Brian Tracy used to also say, he would say that a perfect plan delayed indefinitely is beaten by an imperfect plan implemented immediately. So in other words, if you wait until it's perfect, you're probably never going to do it.
Right.
Just do it. You can come back and tweak it later. It doesn't have to be perfect before you go. You got to go.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. And I think you're right. This is the hardest part of these 8 W's, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of business owners and a lot of people in general, they like making plans. They like dreaming about the future, right?
Right.
But, and Andy and I had this whole podcast on what hard work is.
Yes.
And in my experience, and JT, I'd love you to talk about this, but any goal worth getting is going to take a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, like if you look at it in the plant world, where is the hardest work for the plant? It's not once it's above the soil. The hardest work, the seed has to break out of its casing and push its way through the soil. Once it does that, then it blossoms. So the hardest work is always, it's the inertia. It's getting the momentum started. And you have to be willing to commit to do that work early on in the process. And what also may be a benefit to you, go back to number 5, is the who. The who is not only who can help me get this done, the who is also the accountability people that I build in. So if I commit to Jessica that I'm going to get this thing done, and I give her permission to come in and check on me and go, hey, how'd you make progress on, XYZ project today? Now I have a built-in accountability piece there. I don't want to say to her, well, I didn't get that done. Something else came up. And if she's really good as my accountability, she's going to go, well, how are you going to fix that? Okay. Mm-hmm. So Flippin is the guy that wrote a book years ago called The Flip Side. That's his name, Flippin.
All right.
Okay. Sorry, Mom.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Real name.
He didn't get beat up in school at all, right? I just had this conversation with one of our team the other day, and I said to him, when you sit down and you talk to that employee and they did something they weren't supposed to do, here's your series of questions. These are Flip's questions. Okay. So Flip's first question is, what were you supposed to do? Question number 2 is, what did you do? Question number 3 is, why did you do that? Question number 4 is, what are you going to do to fix it? And question number 5 is, can I count on you to do that?
Wow.
Well, I read that book 15 years ago, and I was like, that is a nugget right there. Because people, when they make a mistake, they don't do what they're supposed to do. If Jess comes in and holds me accountable and I don't do it, and there's no pain for me saying I didn't do it, there's no consequence, there's no action.
Right.
But if Jess says, well, why did you do that? Well, this came up and this was more important. And okay, well, what were you supposed to do? What are you going to do now to fix that? Can I count on you? Are you sure you're going to get that done? And if I'm willing to commit to that now, there's a deeper layer of accountability now, because I let her down the first time. Now I don't want to let her down the second time, right? So you just got to think about the things that you commit to, being able to put the time aside. Those distractions are going to come one way or the other. Your job is to decide whether or not you're going to let them come in and invade that time. Keep the appointment with yourself.
Protect that time.
Yeah.
Protect the time.
I mean,
it's for everybody else.
It's funny when I'm doing home improvement projects, my wife usually walks in and she asks me the question, because I sometimes tell her it's like the human is winning or the job is winning. Sometimes it's both. And one of the things I always tell her is I one of my mantras to myself is get the right tools. I have to walk all the way across the house, get the right tools, come back, or can I just use the screwdriver I'm using? Right. So I think one of the big things in getting your goals done is getting the right tools too. I mean, that's part of the way.
That's part of the way. Going up here.
But realizing that you might have to change the way when you begin the work.
That's true.
Like,
That's true.
You run into that wall and you can't be undeterred by not being able to
I
solve
think,
it.
Andy, there has to be a certain degree of flexibility. And my wife says that to me all the time. You're not always very flexible. And I'm not. Like, I get driven and I'm focused on one thing and I'm like, I'm going to see that thing through no matter what. But life doesn't work that way, right? But there's also a principle that says, 1 minute of planning saves 10 minutes in execution. And so the illustration I gave to someone the other day, I was like, do you have a home? And she said, yes. I go, does your husband do projects around the house? And she laughed. And I said, so what happens if there needs to be a new shelf put into the closet? Like, that's the goal. Install a shelf. Well, most husbands are going to go, no problem. We drive off to Home Depot, we get a piece of wood and a couple of brackets, and we come back and we put up the shelf. But as we go through the process, we realize this is a cinder block wall, not a dry wall. And so the mollies that I have aren't going to be any good. I'm not going to be able to do this. I get back in my car, I drive to Home Depot again. I pick up the mollies, I come back, I get the shelf on. And then my wife says, I don't like raw wood. I wish you would paint it white. And so now I get back in the car and drive to Home Depot again. But if I had that conversation up front, tap on the wall, what's it made out of? Honey, what do you want the shelf to look like when it's done? How many brackets do I need, et cetera? That's really thinking the whole thing through. And that way you do wind up with the right tools or the right supplies or the right materials to get the job done. That's the way part. That's the plan. And so, like I said in the very, very beginning, you've already done a tremendous amount of work to get to this part, because those first 7 steps, that's not easy.
No.
In fact, in the first episode we did on this thing, I told you most people stop at step number 3, because writing down a goal is easy. Yep. And writing one sentence as to why I want to do it is pretty easy too. But when you have to start thinking about, well, where is going to be the obstacle? What's going to get in my way? A lot of people see that as negative, and other people say, that's just I don't want to think about all that. They don't want to do that work. Well, if you're not going to do the work up there in step number 3, you're sure as heck not going to do the work in step number 8. When you've gotten all this stuff laid out.
Yep.
So you got to be a little bit flexible, but you also have to kind of say, that's where I'm going. And I'm going to get there one way or the other. Sometimes you have to push through. Sometimes you may have to adjust. Sure. I don't like to adjust the plan. I don't like to adjust the goal, but I will adjust the plan.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might need a different tool or a different way.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Or a different partner.
And that's okay.
Or a different why.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I think what we've learned through these 8 W's is that it is doing the work through the planning process. What I see with a lot of people in general, not just business owners, but we're a business owner podcast, so we talk about that mainly, is they figure out what do they want to accomplish.
Yeah.
Then they go do it.
Right.
And then they've got to redo the plan multiple times because they haven't thought through.
They have to make the other trip to Home Depot again.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you don't have the plan and you haven't thought through those steps and what are the things that are going to come up and what do I need to make sure I get the job done, there's going to be monkey wrenches thrown into the middle of it that you probably could have seen them coming if you would stop and take the time to think about it. But if you don't, you're going to get shortchanged or you're going to get distracted, or, it's like scope of work in software development, right? If you don't scope the work out completely, you're going to start going down that path. And then you're going to figure out, well, if I change this is going to have that effect over here. Now I got to go backwards and rescope again because we didn't really think it through all the way from the very beginning.
Well, and scoping work, and we've all have been
Let's not talk about technology implementation right now.
But you have to you have to scope out the work, because the people who are doing the work don't understand what you want unless you properly scope out the work.
Yeah, you have to give them context. They have to see how what they're doing is going to get me to this end result over here.
Right.
You just say, build me a software program that does this with no idea of what's going to happen to put that stuff in and what the output needs to be. Once it's done, it's not going to fit everywhere it's supposed to be.
No, I've done that before.
Yeah, they don't build a bridge that way. Well, you guys start on that end of the river and we'll start over here and hopefully we meet in the middle.
Right.
That's not going to end well.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
Well, what I want to bring it back to is that, the podcast, the main point of the podcast, the deal board, is we're talking about business owners preparing to buy or sell a business. And we're here in January. We have a big spike in business usually in January.
Yes, we do.
It's a big goal for most entrepreneurs. They either want to buy or sell. And I think as you're thinking about this goal getting process, it's something you can use for your exit, your sale, or your acquisition.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're thinking at it from a seller's perspective and you start at the number one, I want to sell my business in 2 years for $2.5 million. Okay. Okay, great. Why? There should be a good, compelling why that you can do in one sentence. Okay. Where's the things that are going to come into the way? Well, finding the buyer could come into the way. Getting financing could come into the way. What if my employees leave could come in? You have to think about all that stuff, right? What do I have to learn how to do this? Well, I don't know how to sell a business. I've spent the last 20 years with my head down building this thing. And now I look up and say, I think I want to sell it in a couple of years. Where do I go? What do I do? Well, figure out what you're going to need to learn. You're going to need to learn how to negotiate, how to make sure your books and records are in order, et cetera. Who do I need to help me do that? Well, you need an advisor. A business broker like a Transworld advisor would be a great start. You're going to need your accountant. You're going to need an attorney. You're going to need a lender. You're going to need all these different people. You're going through every one of those steps if you're doing this properly, okay? Right. But the work part of it, which is going to be at the very, very end is, okay, well, the work is when you're selling a business, it's like having 2 jobs. You have the job you have of running your company every day. And as you get further into this and a buyer comes along and makes an offer and you got to fulfill due diligence questions and you have to have buyer and seller calls, it's like having a second job. The good news is that second job only lasts for a certain period of time. And when you're done, the bonus you receive at the end of the second job is really well worthwhile.
Yeah. And you need help and you need expertise at that job because you're not going to get it done.
No.
And the problem is your business will suffer so much.
That's right. And you don't want that. That's the worst thing that can happen is the business goes down, the revenue goes down, the profitability goes down, people leave, you lose clients or contracts. That's not going to keep the value of the business high where you want it to be when the buyer comes along. Yep. And if you're a buyer on the other side, you can run the same 8 steps here.
Right.
The work there is going to be finding the business, working with the broker, seeing it, preparing an offer, doing the financing, negotiating the lease with the landlord with the broker's help, et cetera, et cetera. It's also like having another job.
Yeah. And I don't believe you could accomplish anything great on your own in this world, right? And what was the quote you said, JT, about the who? If I have someone that can do it better than me,
as good as me or good enough, I should delegate.
And that's where teams like Transworld and ourselves are here to help because
the exit factor.
You can't. And you mentioned there's a whole team of people that execute these strategies. It's not something to be done on your own because it is a great accomplishment to buy or sell a business.
Right. And when you get to that point, you may get to item number 5 or 8W number 5, and you go, I don't know who the who are. Just start asking around. Do a little Google searching. Figure out what are the steps I have to take to sell my business, okay? Most of them, there's going to be some stuff out there that says you can sell it on your own. I can sell a car on my own. I can sell a house on my own. I can sell anything on my own. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it right. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it quickly. And doesn't mean I'm going to get the most amount of money I could for it. That's where a partner comes in and helps you.
Yeah. So number one financial transaction of most people's lives when they sell or buy a business. And it's really important and you need to make sure it's done right. And that's why you want to go through this process. Right. If your goal in 2025, and it's a great goal to sell your business, baby boomers turning 65 still at tens of thousands a day.
Yes.
Last year was 12,000. I think it's still about that many. People turning 65 every single day.
Wow.
It's crazy. So there's 4 million plus businesses that have to sell over the next
hands.
That has to change hands. So we're talking to you out there, folks. We're talking to you. Set your goals. This is a great goal. Go back and listen and binge Binge listen.
Binge listen.
Binge JT.
Maybe we should package them up and put them out
Yeah,
there.
playlist,
That's a good idea.
So that's a little series. But, JT, thank you.
My pleasure.
Every
always.
single, and just tell everybody what you're up to these days.
Yeah,
It's great.
Well, and so to your earlier point, too, sometimes does your plan have to change?
Right.
Okay, right. So
Did your plan change in 2024?
It did. It changed at the end of 2024, quite unexpectedly, but quite pleasantly. It's going to be a good thing, I think, all the way around for us as an organization, as a brand. I was part of my plan 10 years ago was my conversation with Ray, who's the CEO of United Franchise Group. And I had been with him at that point almost 30 years. And I was like, look, I've spent 30 years training other people on how to buy a business, grow a business, eventually sell it, retire. I want my shot. And he said, great. Where do you want to open your Signorama store? Well, and I said, well, that's the problem. Where I want to go, I can't do that. There's already a Signorama in Spartanburg, one in Anderson, one in Asheville, one in Greenville. None of them want to sell because I already called them all. And so, but let's do a Transworld. So that's how I got into this side of the equation, is become a Transworld franchisee, helping lots of our clients buy and sell businesses for the last 6 years now. But last year, at the end of 2024, about the end of Q3, I had a conversation with Ray, and there were some changes that were coming in your office, Andy.
Yep.
Some of your great long-term partners and agents have moved on, and you have a hole that needs to be filled. And we had a Bill, who was our founder and our president for many, many years, working alongside of you on the franchise side of Transworld. And, he had an opportunity to express that many, many times in the past. I want to, geez, you guys make a lot of money as agents, okay? And helping people sell businesses and buy businesses. And so he was going to be looking to make that move. And that opened up an opportunity for me to come and bring the franchise experience that I have, the United Franchise Group experience for a number of years, as well as the last 5 or 6 years running our own Transworld office, and take over as Transworld Business Advisors president for the franchise brand.
That's great.
So that was an unexpected
blessing.
Yeah, it is a blessing. And an unexpected change in the game plan. I had a game plan. I was working my plan. An opportunity comes along. Sometimes you have to be opportunistic.
Yes.
And you have to see what's in front of you, and you weigh it out, and you make a pros and cons list. You say, how can I make this work? Is this the right thing to do for me, for my family, for the business, for the organization? After all of that deliberation, the answer was yes. All right. So here we are. So you can't get rid of me either way. Like, if you're like, you can't be on the podcast anymore, I'm like, well, heck no, I can, because I'm the president now.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're going to have them on lots.
No, I'm not going to.
And we're going to get more, and we're going to get his son, who's running.
Eli is running the business.
Eli's running the business. We're going to get him doing some deals of the week, which we have coming up right after this interview.
And listings of the week.
And a listing of the week.
Yes, sir.
And again, thank you so much.
My pleasure always.
It's a great episode.
Yes.
And everybody go out there and have a great year.
Be a goal-getter, 2025.
Hey, Jessica, you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is listing of the week, and I have Ryan Armstrong here from Transworld Business Advisors of Phoenix, and you have a good new listing.
I do. It actually is an old new listing. So we met this seller about 1.5 years ago, and we went through the whole process. They weren't ready. Out of the blue, she calls us back and says, "I'm ready now."
There you go.
Yep, a med spa.
Med spa.
Yep. No. So it's just skin. So no weight loss. But
Right.
she's doing $1.5 million in sales.
Nice.
And 350,000 in SDE.
All right.
She has a nurse practitioner on staff, so it's all ready to go for a new owner.
All right. Does she have a price on it?
She does. 1.5 million.
1.5 million gets you a good deal. I'm sure you get financing on that too.
We do. Yep. We have financing set up for it.
Wow. Sounds like a great deal. And sounds like they have a nurse practitioner, so you don't have to be a medical.
Yep. In Arizona, you just need to be a nurse practitioner, and you just have to have one on staff. So
There you go. So
ready to go.
It's good for any entrepreneur, and the med spa business is blowing up. I mean, everybody wants to take care of themselves, right?
Oh yeah, it's definitely our country needs it.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ryan, what's the best way to get in touch with you if somebody wants to learn more?
Armstrong at twoworld.com. You can email me, and we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is? It's time for our deal of the week.
Deal of the week.
Sold.
Hey, everybody, it's Mike Shea, Transworld Business Advisors in Tampa, Florida, and I want to talk about a deal we just completed.
It is a 40-year-old mechanic shop, general mechanic shop over in St. Petersburg. The client was referred to me by a friend of theirs who's actually one of our agents in one of our Carolina offices. And we met with the seller. It was a great business. Not much to look at. Certainly wasn't a pretty little franchise, but man, they did some volume, almost $2 million in revenue. They cash flowed around 300 and change, 350, 360. We ended up selling the business at almost a 3x multiple of $900,000 through an SBA loan. The buyer came from an internet ad, had a bunch of advisors, non-brokers, so it got a little challenging to try and get control of the buyer and get them educated on the proper way of doing this. And then once we got them linked up with the right banks, right insurance people, right CPAs and attorneys, we were able to knock this thing out and get it closed. Sellers retiring, buyers in the industry, but had worked for a big dealer and really was able to take the reins right away. So if you want to reach out to me, if you're looking to sell your automotive business or any other business in the Tampa or greater Orlando areas, I am Mike Shea. I can be reached at 321-287-0349 or mike@tworld.com.
Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.